Welcome to the All the Hats We Wear podcast. This show will teach you the time management skills you need to live your life like it's a masterpiece. You're going to learn a completely unique and innovative approach to managing your crazy busy life. I'm a musician, so you're going to learn a musician's creative and intuitive system for productivity and work-life balance. I believe the key to a fulfilling life is to manage all the roles you play, those hats you wear, and when you do this, you'll be more joyful, productive, and fulfilled in all areas of life. I'm a life coach, a productivity expert, and your host, Scott Snow. Welcome to the show, everybody. We have a fascinating guest today. Marie Leslie is a lifelong entrepreneur who started her first business at age 13. She has extensive experience as a copywriter, editor, blogger, and feature article writer. She was a professional photographer and ran a photography studio for 30 years. Today, Marie is a business consultant and speaker with her company, Small Business Simplifier. She helps her clients maximize their social media, productivity, organization, and branding. Make sure to listen close because Marie is going to give you a lot of ideas to help your business. Marie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Would you tell us about your company, Small Business Simplifier?
Sure. I help people figure out what they need to do to run their businesses, to whether organization, productivity, and the nuts and bolts. Mostly I work with very small businesses and solo entrepreneurs. Most of us, it came about as most of us didn't get into business because we wanted to run a business. It was because we had a skill or an interest that we were passionate about and wanted to share with the world. And then we started a business and found out that there was an awful lot more to business than the thing that we loved.
Right. You're reminding me of the E-Myth Revisited. I just read that from Michael Gerber, where you have to be the tradesperson, the specialist, and then also the manager and the visionary, or the owner.
Yes, that was a great book. That was an eye-opener for me. I read it quite a few years ago, and it really did help me change the way I thought about running my business.
Well, you have quite a unique background in how this business came to be. I know you have a background in journalism and photography. Can you tell us how all of that led to what you do now?
Sure. I've always been a writer. I think I've known since I read my first book when I was 5 years old that I would grow up and words and writing would be a part of my life. I learned that writing, I was drawn to nonfiction. So writing is almost to me is a form of teaching. We read books like the E-Myth and those kind of things. And so that's always been there. As a teenager, I started my own business because I wanted to, like most teens, I wanted to make money and I wasn't old enough to go to work for someone else. So kind of had a little bit of background in sort of teenage entrepreneurship. And when I was in college, I worked my way through school as a copywriter. I also started a photography business while I was in college, and that was kind of an accidental entrepreneurship. But it eventually grew into a full-time brick and mortar studio. And I did that for about 30 years. Along the way, as most of us know, small business owners, I needed to learn how to market that business. I had to learn how to organize the administrative side of the business and do all those things. And I've always been an early adopter of technology. So the internet came along, I built websites. Eventually I had clients who wanted to know who built my website. And during my slow times, I started building those websites. And then they wanted to know what you do with a website. So they started hiring me to teach them how to market and how to those things. And eventually I moved to Colorado about 11 years ago and realized it was time to hang up the photography hat and went into business consulting. And as I did that, you become more and more refined. And I realized I love organizing and putting together systems. And it's just how my brain works. A few years ago, I was looking to rebrand my business. And I had a client who said to me, what you really do is you simplify business for the rest of us. And that's how I became the Small Business Simplifier.
You mentioned copywriting. A lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. Is copywriting a viable, even part-time gig, like a thing to get through this pandemic?
It is. You can either do it straight up freelance if you're not great at marketing yourself, or you're not. There are a number of companies that hire freelance copywriters, and they pay pretty well. I have worked for some of them and someone else because I love to keep my hand in the writing. Definitely, it's definitely a viable option. There's a number of organizations out there. If you look up freelance copywriting, I don't recommend. I recommend if you're in the States and you're a native English speaker, going with a company here. Most of them pay better than anything that you're gonna find overseas, but you can make anywhere from $50 to $100 to more for good articles. If you're really great at writing converting sales copy, you can make thousands of dollars. That's not my great strength. I'm not a sales writer. I do more informational and educational kind of things. But yeah, you can definitely find work, copywriting, editing, all of that. With the boom in blogging, there's a definite need for it.
So you just do a Google search for freelance copywriters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are there other big
freelance editing?
Any other big companies that you recommend? Like, would you go to Fiverr or something like that?
You can do Fiverr. There are a couple of companies that specialize in it. I know that one is called Comma Copywriting. And they hire periodically. I think from what I understand, they do it in waves. There's, and I can't think of the name right now, it's editorial something or another. There's a couple of organizations that are basically, a text broker is one. That's a company that you go on, and it's like Fiverr, but it's specifically for writing and editing.
Okay.
And there's a couple other companies like that.
Now let's switch gears to productivity.
Okay.
How do you approach goal setting and goal attainment for your clients?
All right. Well, the first thing is, one of the things I make sure my clients understand when I work with them is that I don't have a one size fits all. We're all different. We all work differently. How I do something to make my office work may not be what would make yours work. So the first thing is to figure out what is it that's really important. What is the goal, and really why is it that you have that goal? There's a lot of sort of talk about why, but if your goal is because somebody told you to do it, or this is what business owners do, you're not as likely to get there. You really need to have some personal investment in it. What's the outcome you're looking for? So that's the first thing. Is what is the goal? And then we break it down into attainable steps. You cannot cross a canyon in a single jump.
Right.
You need to build that bridge and take step by step to get across it. Also, having small incremental goals is going to reinforce you on the way. You get those small wins, they keep you going to the big win, especially when it gets tough.
Mm. You were mentioning building systems before for a business. So how do you help your clients improve workflow and create systems for productivity?
Well, the first thing is figure out where you're getting stuck. What is the thing? If you deal with customers and you get feedback, what is it that they're telling you isn't working?
Right.
I went through a period of rapid growth in my studio many years ago, and it was actually not filling orders, but getting them delivered became a bottleneck for us. And I thought, it's okay. People are used to waiting. Until finally, I actually had a client who said, the only issue I have in working with you is that it took so long to get the order. And I realized that the orders were coming in sitting on my desk. And so that was something I had to work with. So it's what isn't working in your business? What frustrates you? What's costing you money? What's costing you clients? Is it returning phone calls? Is it filing? Is it, getting orders out, getting orders submitted, whatever it is? That's where we start. It's what's the thing that hurts the most,
Right.
and build a system backwards from there.
Let's talk about social media platforms. Our listeners often ask about, how to spend time and how to be productive with social media. So I know that Twitter, you're doing amazing. You have over 20,000 followers, I think, on Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
So
I've been there a
obviously,
while.
yeah. So some excellent skills for that. So what is your overall approach to the different platforms? Have you found some to be better for you than others?
I do best with Twitter and LinkedIn. I do spend some time on Facebook, but I'll admit that very quickly becomes a time suck.
Uh-huh.
And some degree of my time on Facebook is definitely personal time. That's where the old friends and the cousins and all those kind of people are. But I set aside certain blocks of time for using social media. I also use a social media scheduling program so that I can, especially things that are like links to my websites or things I want to retweet or post fairly regularly. I schedule those in advance.
Which program do you use?
Right now I'm using a program called eClincher, and I used Hootsuite for many years. There's probably 8 or 10 programs out there. A couple of them have very limited free options, but most of them range somewhere between $30, $50, $100 a month. And it depends on, what you're doing, but I will tell you that paying for the time that I can go in and for a week or 2 weeks or even a month, schedule out my basic social media in maybe an hour instead of being online every day for 15 minutes here and 15 minutes here and 15 minutes here. Those things add up really fast and we often don't realize it.
Right.
So that's the biggest thing that helps me keep on track.
Mm-hmm. How did you generate your following on Twitter?
I've been on Twitter since, it's probably been a dozen years. And it's just being active, being very active, interacting with people. There are two kinds of social media people. There are the broadcasters and the communicators.
Mm.
Broadcasters just post.
Right.
They don't respond. They don't comment. They just post, throwing it. It's like TV commercials. You just throw it out there and hope it works. And then you have communicators, which are the people who actually interact, like posts, comment on posts, respond to people when they have questions. And I found that is much more effective at, not only building a following, but building community.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell that you are a communicator because that's how we met, because I think you retweeted something I tweeted and then I followed you. And
yeah, we kind of started doing a little back and forth.
Right. Yep. That's the name of the game. I notice you post a lot about books and book recommendations too. So that doesn't go exactly with the productivity part. So do you just have that in coordination with your business?
Yeah, that's, I guess you could call it my side hustle. I just, I love books and words, and I have a lot of friends and colleagues over the year who are writers and authors. And I did actually work as an editor after college in a full-time job. And so anything, and really photography falls into that too. It's all communication. And so, yeah.
I asked that question because I often struggle with that, how much do you want to make it about, this is something, whatever, I'm into backgammon or movies, horror movies. So you have to have that line, but also it is a way to bring people on the fringe to you. And, if you're doing something like productivity, that could relate to pretty much anybody, right? So it's not like, astrophysics.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of balances out. And I think too, that tweeting about more than just productivity, organization, business, when we add in some of our personality, that definitely makes a difference. I have a couple of business people that I regularly tweet back and forth with And about half of our tweets are, what are you doing this weekend? And how's the weather? And what's happening? She's on the East Coast and I'm in Colorado. And, it's just kind of nice to have those slices of life into what is it like for the people that you're with and who are they? And I think it helps build those, those relationships and the following.
A lot of solopreneurs that I speak with are very active with, putting out social media and being active in that way. But to get clients is kind of another thing. So how do you bridge that gap between, you making that relationship and then start to move them towards to be a real client?
Well, it's watching for their questions. When somebody posts, I'm having trouble with this, or does anyone have any recommendations for that? And opening a dialogue that way. And how can I help you? Most of my clients have come about after I've perhaps answered a number of questions for them in back and forth exchanges on social media that eventually moved to email, and then maybe even, phone calls or Zoom meetings.
So at that point, do you offer like a free consult call?
Yeah.
Okay.
If somebody, in fact, those are as much for me as they are for a potential client.
Interesting.
To make sure that they're a good fit and that what I'm doing is what they're looking for. And if it's not, and I know somebody who would be a better fit, I will send them off in that direction.
Yeah.
You should look into this type of service because this would work better for you.
So during the consult, then it might come up of your different programs or your coaching packages.
Yes. Yeah. We talk about if it's something I can help with, then I will just put it out there. Hey, this could work for you. This is what I offer.
What are some books that have been really important for you in terms of entrepreneurship and that you highly recommend to other entrepreneurs?
Okay, well, there's some, we talked about the E-Myth, excellent book. I mean, I recommend it for every solopreneur. Yeah, he's a big one. Chris, and I'm never sure if I'm saying his name right, but I think it's Guillebeau, Guillebeau. And he runs a site called the Side Hustle School. He's a number of his book called The $100 Startup. Also one called The Money Tree. If someone is just starting to explore the idea that maybe there's more to life than the 9 to 5, both Side Hustle and The Money Tree are great because they talk about getting in, building a side hustle step by step, that you don't need big bucks to turn your interests into into a business. And you can do that. Profit First. I wish somebody had given me that book 30 years ago.
Okay, I'll list all those books in the notes for sure.
Those are all, excellent ones that are really applied to getting started in any business.
Over the summer, I started getting involved with TikTok. And although usually you would think that's just for, 10, 12-year-old kids, I've been very surprised that even, like high school skater kids, are interested in goal setting or purpose or, time management. So, do you have any advice for someone who's in high school or a student, in terms of entrepreneurship or, discovering their purpose?
Yeah, those two, Chris Guillebeau, and he has this great podcast where it's like 5 minutes at a time, is great because he really does talk about a little bit. Being in high school, look around. Do you have a talent? My first business at 13, and this is really going to date me, was making macrame pot hangers. And, it doesn't seem like much, but at the time I could buy a roll of jute, which was the preferred material then, for about $1. And I could spend an hour making one of these things and sell it for $20 or $25, which, even then was a pretty nice profit margin. Or do you have a service you can offer? My next business was teaching swimming lessons. I grew up in Southern California. Everybody has a pool. That really is, not a cliche. And so I had a little scooter, And we had a pool in our backyard, and some people would come to our house and I would teach their kids to swim. It was one of those 30 minutes a day for 2 weeks kind of things. And I would have 4 or 5 kids in a class and do these swimming lessons. My friends were all working at, McDonald's and Jack in the Box, and I had a really good tan. It was very, very profitable. Maybe you can be a, mother's helper. Do you mow lawns? Do you run errands? In this age of deliveries and things, there may be a personalized service you can offer. Look at what your talents are. My youngest daughter formed a band when she was in high school, and they had a little wedding band, and she's a musician, and they, played for events. And
it strikes me that all of the examples that you gave really come from being of service, or like, how can I be helpful? And I think a lot of times, teens can be known as being kind of self-absorbed. So it requires that, switch from the me to how can I be helpful?
Yeah, it's learning to look around.
Yep.
And saying, is there a need? Or it may even be selling a product or whatever. Are you good at hair? Are you good at makeup? I realize those are, if you do those as an adult, you have to be licensed and that sort of thing. But maybe you can teach if you're a teenage girl and you're good at makeup, and I never was, you can teach your friends how to do it. Thankfully, my daughters, when they went off to college, had a roommate who was really good at it and taught them everything they needed to know. And, there are many people who would pay for that, or having someone do your makeup for the big dance or whatever it is.
Sure. I have 12-year-old twin boys that play basketball. And I could tell you for sure that, to get a high school player to come over and show some moves, that's kind of a valuable lesson,
I think that's a great idea, the peer, and it gets you started and gets your brain working and realizing that life is not just 9 to 5 for someone else.
Right. Very nice. I loved what you said in your blog about choosing tasks that move you towards your goal instead of just having tasks that take up time. Would you tell us more about that?
Sure. It's really hard, especially when you're a solopreneur and you don't think you can afford to hire out or do anything else. But it's very easy when you own a business to get yourself caught up in running the business, which is, we call it working in the business as opposed to working on the business.
Right.
And there's another opportunity for teenagers. I hired many teenagers when I had my studio to come in and file papers for me, or as a photography studio, you get an order and I don't know, a lot, it's more digital now, but then it was putting the pictures in folders and assembling orders and packaging them pretty and things. Hired one to come and clean the bathrooms.
Yep.
There are lots of little things, and you think, oh, it's not a big deal. It only takes me this much time. Well, that's that much time you're not growing your business, or you're not working towards your goals.
Right.
And once you start doing that and you realize the amazing resource that it frees up, which is your time, money is acquirable, money is replicatable, time is not.
Right.
And so find, the things you hate. The first thing I did when I could hire somebody was to hire a bookkeeper. I do not like putting numbers in Excel.
Right.
It bores me to tears. I like analyzing the numbers and looking at how they're growing, but I don't like here's a receipt, enter it in the program and that kind of thing. And so the first thing I did was hire a bookkeeper. Best move I ever made. Just the relief of the stress.
Marie, are you a journaler?
I am. I have been keeping a journal since I was 12.
How does it benefit you?
I find a lot of things. One is when I write things down, and I can work out a lot of things sort of objectively. It's like cheap therapy.
Right.
Instead of venting on someone or wrestling this in my head, putting things down on paper, especially maybe I'm thinking about a new program, or do I want to go in a direction with my business, or decisions, to write it all down somehow makes it objective and easier to evaluate, but it also gets things out of my head. We wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with all these ideas, and then we have to hold them in our head. Well, I've learned if I just get up and go write it down, I can go back to sleep because now I don't have to remember.
Do you write by hand or on computer?
I now most of the time on computer, but there are days where, especially working out business things, I like to write it down by hand. I buy legal pads by the case.
Right. I notice you've incorporated affiliates into your business. Is that something you recommend our listeners to consider?
It is. I'm rather particular. I will only recommend an affiliate that I actually use. I don't have, I have had people, approach me and say, will you recommend my product? Well, no, I need to know that what I'm telling my customers to use, my clients to use, actually works and how it works. I need to test things out and make sure that it's going to be a good fit.
So they would be on your website. Would you mind telling us how the listeners can find out more about what you do and what you offer?
Sure. I'm at the it's smallbusinesssimplifier.com. Is my website. I'm also on, like I said, on Twitter under my name. It's Marie R. Leslie. Apparently there's many of us out there. But you'll know if you go to my Twitter, the header says Small Business Simplifier. And on LinkedIn is Marie Leslie. And I'm always happy to connect with people. You can find me on Facebook at Marie Leslie. But most of the business stuff comes through, like I said, Twitter, LinkedIn, or my website. Very easy way to find me.
Okay. Just a little quick summary. How often would you say you post on all the different platforms?
Generally, at least once a day on LinkedIn. Rarely more than 2 or 3 times at the most. And I would have to have something going on to even post 3 times a day. It's not to say that I don't respond to more than that. Twitter, anywhere from 4 to 7 times a day. And those are just spread out throughout the day. And it's a combination of, actually it's probably more than that, because I belong to a group called, a cooperative called Triberr. Retweet things from other people. So those come up more often, but my own tweet is about 4 to 7 times a day. And it's, maybe something about a blog post that I've posted, or a recommendation for something, or a favorite quote, thought about something. So those kind of things.
So it sounds like a good idea to be involved with some different groups or communities.
That has helped my growth has been, in Triberr and back and forth. And as you get to know people and what they're posting and it, it kind of builds from there. It's the start of building some community.
It's called Triberr on Twitter.
Triberr, it's TRIBERR.com, and it's free. And
but it's through Twitter.
You find groups that, with common interests, maybe business bloggers or book reviewers or whatever it is. And you can join a group with them and basically retweet each other's blog posts.
Okay. So. Do you post a lot of video, or is it mostly text?
Right now it's text. I have all these ideas and kind of, it's really funny because you'd think as a photographer that video would be easy, but it's not.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. But I have a few videos here and there, but that's something I really want to explore over the next year and start, maybe trying out TikTok, and that's about the right length of video for me.
Yeah, I try to go for 30 seconds or less with TikTok.
Yeah, I like the little sound bites.
And I found that on Instagram Reels, you get a lot of views too. So I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I do a little Instagram, but I'm thinking it's kind of time for me to step up into the video.
Yeah. What should solopreneurs know about having the right messaging in their business?
It's very important. Know who you're talking to. take the time to figure out who your ideal client is. And I know it sounds cliche, but it really is not everyone. Even Coca-Cola does not sell. I'm not one of their customers. I don't like this stuff. But so it's important to know who you want to work with. It's not even all solopreneurs, if that's your business. It's going to be who's the ideal person, and talk to them. Just like you and I are talking, create that person in your head. Who is my ideal customer? Who do I really want to work with? And talk to them. Tell them what they need to know, what you want them to know to be able to work with you.
What if you can't decide who your target audience is? I'm asking for a friend.
Sure. Pick one. You can have 2 or 3 target groups, but pick one at a time. Today, I'm going to say, for example, I work with a lot of people who are in professional services, for example, insurance, and that sort of thing, insurance, finance, business. So if that's the group I want to draw in, I'm going to talk to them today. And I speak to them differently. I also work with a lot of creatives, photographers, artists, writers, even people say makeup artists and that sort of thing, which may not seem related, but that's a very creative profession. So if I'm going to speak to them, I'm going to speak to them differently than I'm going to talk to the insurance brokers. They don't speak the same language. So it's okay to have more than one target client. Just create basically a persona for each one. And don't try and talk to everybody at once.
Right. I find myself to be in a little bit of an identity crisis right now, because I've tried with the podcast to make it more, relaxed. So usually I'll wear a rock t-shirt, I've got the drum set in the back. And even if I post that to LinkedIn, I know that LinkedIn, it should be professional, but then I also struggle with you want to be unique as well. So do you have any tips on how to negotiate that? If you want to be unique and be something different, but also you have to appeal to the right crowd, right?
Right. I think we get an idea stuck in our head about what professional means. The suit and tie days are gone unless you're in those finance and baking and mergers. And to me, being professional is much more about your demeanor. It's being neatly dressed and well-groomed, and you have a tidy office behind you. If I'm talking to somebody about productivity, I do not want to see the piles of papers and that would not be professional. Or the cat might wander in. That's okay most of the time.
Right.
As long as he's not sitting in front of your camera monopolizing the meeting. But the important thing is figure out who you want to be, and you will find your people. It doesn't, you're obviously not the suit and tie guy. And if you were sitting in front of me dressed that way, we would probably have a different conversation because it gives a different vibe. So, you can never go wrong with, say, business casual. I don't want to see you online in your pajamas. Thank you very much. Even if they're really cute, it's that kind of thing. It's basically being professional is about making your audience comfortable. Are they going to feel like you're somebody they can talk to and who can relate?
Beautiful. Our last question, Marie, is what's one action our listeners can take to help them become more fulfilled?
Get up from the computer and go do something you love. All work, especially now in this last 18 months with working from home and us being on Zoom. I had a week where I had 20 hours of Zoom meetings. And I realized that I didn't want to do that again. But we get too wrapped up and we can work 24 hours a day. Get up from the computer, turn it off, go outside. I think I just wrote about this. Do something, whether it's read a book, bake a cake, try something new, something you've always wanted to do. Stop listening to the people who tell you you can't. You're not too old. You're not too dumb. You're not too uncoordinated. And who cares if you try it and it fails? I cannot count the number of times I've fallen on my face, sometimes on Zoom calls. But it helps. Be you. Do the things that make your heart happy, not just work.
Awesome. I wanted to share with the audience too that before our interview started, you told me that, well, since you live in Colorado, that you visited the Shining Hotel. So with Halloween coming around the corner and me being a huge Halloween fan, that's pretty impressive too.
Yeah. And this is the time of year to be up there. The leaves are turning, the elk are bugling, and yes, the hotel, it's called the Stanley. After the Stanley steamer guy, there really are elk wandering through town.
I wish that you had booked room 237 so we could have heard about that, but maybe you can do that this next Halloween.
Time.
Well, Marie, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. It's been fun.
Visit allthehatswewear.com for more information on how we can help you and your team be more productive and have better work-life balance. We offer coaching, trainings, and workshops that'll empower you to be more joyful, productive, and fulfilled in all areas of life. Visit allthehatswewear.com.